Hey guys, welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit, Am I the A-hole? This one's from user Silas of the Lambs. Would I be the a-hole if I told my wife it's her fault the kids don't care to give her gifts? So look, my wife is a great mother in many ways and I love her dearly, but she is crap at getting gifts. Back when we were dating, when I rang her doorbell with a dozen roses, she opened the door and immediately said, "You can't afford that." This, I'm afraid, is fairly typical of her response when given anything. Not even strained politeness, but usually a directly negative response. It's hard for me. My family are big gift givers, but I'm an adult and I love her enough to find other ways to show it. So on birthdays, I buy her the exact thing she requests, and other times, I just restrain myself entirely. Our kids, 5 male and 2 female, though, lack this perspective. They do what kids do. "Look, mommy, I found this stick in the yard for you." They find her response to this as demoralizing as I do. I work nights and sleep in late. I woke up this morning to a text to the effect that she had asked the kids to make her a card for Mother's Day, and they responded with great enthusiasm that they wanted to make them for my mother. The long-standing tension between wife and mother is largely outside the scope of this post, but it is sadly quite severe, which partly explains why this bothered her as much as it clearly did. She thinks the fact that the kids prefer their grandma is my fault. I didn't point it out in the moment for obvious reasons, and I ultimately pestered the kids into making her cards. Kid scribbles that I helped them sign their names to. But would I be the a-hole if I found a good moment to remonstrate with her? To explain that the reason nobody wants to give her nice things is because she habitually craps all over any she gets that she didn't pick out herself in advance? And that my mom always shows enthusiasm and delight in every bunch of dandelions or lump of dirt she gets, so the kids naturally think of her when they think of giving nice things to people. The judgment is not the a-hole. Now let's take a look at the top comments. Not Michelle says, not the a-hole. This needs to be pointed out to her, not necessarily for her sake, but for the sake of your children who don't need to be treated this way by their mother when they're trying to do something kind. Pine Peaches says, not the a-hole, but I wouldn't necessarily compare her gift receiving skills to your mom's, especially if they don't have a good relationship. My mom sucks at receiving gifts, and I wish someone would have told her how hurtful she was being when I was growing up. Well, OP, I kinda understand your kids not wanting to give your wife anything. They get no positive feedback from it. Why would they want to do something or give something to someone who doesn't show like they care? Kids need that feedback. It might be ridiculous to an adult, but kids need that. They like feeling like they've done something for somebody they love and that person appreciates it. It builds their confidence. Your wife might be a fantastic mother in all other aspects, but this one is also very important. Hopefully, you'll be able to help her understand this. Edit. I'm getting predictably dragged for my handling of Mother's Day. I will provide some background. For years, we have had a pattern. After numerous abortive attempts to surprise her with gifts, with dates or outings, with meals I made, and so on, I have largely given up on creativity. So, for birthdays, for Christmas, for Mother's Day, and so on, what I do is, I ask her what she wants, and then I do that. So, earlier this week, I asked her what she'd like for Mother's Day. She sort of snorted and said nothing. Then, a couple of days later, she said that what she wanted for Mother's Day was to get her and the kids dressed up nice and have me take a picture, as opposed to having anybody else come by to take it. She's on extra cautious end of bug lockdown preparedness. I said I'd help with that, but asked her to remember that I was working overnight and would be asleep for much of the morning. She has a favorite candy bar that she always places on the grocery list when I go. I do most of our shopping. I bought her a bunch of them on the last trip, but held one out to save for Mother's Day. Last night, since I wouldn't be up, I gave it to the kids to give to her. All very secretive and hush-hush. They enjoyed the conspiracy and ran into the room with big smiles on their faces to give it to her. She, however, was disposed to inform them that she had already had one that day. She put it casually on the side. She wasn't mean, just disinterested and tactless. I guess the kids pretty much shrugged it off. I work all night. I go to sleep at 9 a.m. I wake up at 2 p.m. I read this text described above. I get up and go downstairs and convince the kids to draw cards on some paper. I raise the family photo she asked about. She doesn't want to. Maybe I'm clumsy. Maybe I'm doing a bad job adjusting to her love language. Certainly, I'm not the kind of mind reader it would take to know I was supposed to ignore her stated preference about how to mark the day. But kindly do not accuse me of not trying. Edit 2. Thanks everyone for the insightful and candid responses. Although my judgment, which apparently the community supports, is that my wife is in the wrong here, I want to make it absolutely clear that she is an amazing and capable mother. If our kids, one of whom has serious chronic health issues, survive to adulthood, her meticulous, detail-oriented and thorough approach to life and parenting will be a big reason why. We're looking at the flip side of that here, and most of us are in agreement it's a problem. But it's only a problem, not an indication that she's a horrible, abusive wife and mother. She makes our children feel loved and safe and special every single day in a dozen different ways. No argument we might need counseling though. It is my view that substantially the entire human race could benefit from some professional counseling. Let's move on to the update to see what actually happened. A few days after posting that, wife and I were sitting on the couch and I piped up and said this. I think you should try to be more enthusiastic when the kids give you things. I didn't bring up the previous argument, and on the wise advice of many people in the other thread, I didn't bring up my mother. That was literally all I had to say. Although I was ready with a follow-up, she said, yeah, I've kind of been thinking about that. I should show more appreciation. I thanked her for receiving it that way, and we went about our respective business. So that was that. I've been watching to see if she meant it, and there has been a huge improvement. Just this week, the 5-year-old boy made her something out of Legos. She says, thank you, I love that you're so creative. Even when the 2-year-old girl brought her the blanket from her own bed, the kids are not allowed to mess with our bed without us, she said, thanks, now I can be snuggly, but remember, you're not supposed to do that. She mostly remembers to do this on her own, although a couple of times I gave her a look. She's not good at it, to be honest. Her attempts are uniformly pretty unconvincing to me, but they seem to be convincing to the kids, who smile and laugh and sometimes come tell me about it, from my position 5 feet away. Daddy, I gave Mom a blanket and she can be snuggly, but I forgot about I'm not supposed to do that. The 2-year-old girl is big on long run-on sentences, which I'm pretty sure she gets from me. But anyway, wife is trying and she's being quite consistent, and maybe actual skill in it will come with time. So thank you all for the good advice on abstracting the general problem from the specific dispute involving the mother-in-law, and for all your kind support. Thanks even to the individual who's 100% sure we're going to get divorced. We're not though. We can work through stuff and become stronger as a couple together. Well, OP, it sounds like you're solving that problem, and that's fantastic. This is definitely going to help your wife and your children's relationship grow even stronger. I guess in this case it's a fake it till you make it kind of approach. She's going to just have to fake the interest until it becomes a true interest in whatever her kids give her. It's not about the gift itself, it's about the fact that they want to give something to their mom, and that they're really hoping to make her happy. So as long as she acts happy, the kids are gonna be great. What do you guys think? Why do you think OP's wife acts this way? Let me know in the comment section. This one's from user Throwaway British Mom. Am I the a-hole for yelling at my brother? I, 25 female, have been with my boyfriend, 30 male, for 8 months. I have a 90-year-old son. Yes, I know, it sounds bad. I still get a lot of crap for it. I divorced my ex-husband last year, and I've happily moved on. Fast forward in the new year of 2020. I met my boyfriend and he's been everything a girl could ever ask for. He's sweet, attentive to my wants and needs, and is an amazing father figure to my son. I introduced him to my family, and while they've initially had their reservations, they gradually accepted him with open arms. I'm the youngest of 4, with 3 older brothers, 36, 34, and 31, and the only girl. Unfortunately, we hit a rough patch 4 months ago. I found out I was pregnant but suffered a miscarriage. I'll admit, I was an emotional wreck and utterly depressed. We grieved together, went through online therapy, and we managed to cope. Boyfriend has been my rock every step of the way and took on more responsibilities at home to lessen the burden. He even bought me a promise ring and told me he loved me and would never leave me despite my faults. Last month, my boyfriend was diagnosed with depression and has been seeing a therapist. He's been feeling emotionally drained. Since then, I've limited the number of chores he does, ask him to do yoga with me along with other family activities with my son, and remind him to take his meds on time. He grumbles a bit, but complies. I love my boyfriend and I do see myself having a future with him. I just want him to feel better. Here's where the conflict began. With restrictions slowly easing, my parents and brothers started visiting us. After a long, exhausting day of cleaning the house and doing the laundry, I was in the kitchen cooking dinner. Everything was going great until my 3rd older brother made a remark to my boyfriend at how I do more chores than he did and said aloud whether I was a personal maid and boyfriend should contribute more as it's not fair for a single mom to do everything around the house while her man lazes about like her deadbeat ex. I yelled at my brother that my boyfriend does not laze about, and if he really did compare him to my ex, then he was being horrible. He said he didn't mean it. My son asked to be excused and left the dining room. Boyfriend followed suit. I told my brother if he wasn't going to apologize, then he should leave. He eventually did. I called mom that I was going to limit contact with my brother. Boyfriend did tell me that while he did appreciate me standing up for him, he said I should have at least told him why first. Now, I felt bad because I shouldn't have cut the visit short and might have caused a rift in my family. I don't know what to do. My parents or brothers sided with me, but other relatives are divided. Am I the a-hole? Oh, and a little FYI, I'm British, boyfriend is American, my family moved to the US when I was 12. The judgment is not the a-hole. Now let's take a look at the top comments. Gallows Jack says, "There's a lot to unpack here. However, not the a-hole. It sounds like your brother was a jerk. He should have pulled you aside to ask what was going on rather than make the comment on front of your boyfriend. What kind of constructive ending did he think he was going to get with that?" Unsightly Fuzz says, "Not the a-hole. You could explain the backstory to your brother without revealing your boyfriend's depression status, which violates his privacy. Yelling might have been over the top, but let's face it, you were between a rock and a hard place." Cinnamon Girl says, "Not the a-hole. It seems that if your brother was genuinely concerned about the division of labor, he should talk to you alone. A public ambush never helps. In my opinion, if a person is in current treatment for depression and not in crisis, there is no reason for them to do less housekeeping chores. Structure is good for treatment, but insulting both of you in front of your son is not okay. Your brother accomplished zero with his tactics. He is your brother, and it seems that you could hash this out before you limit contact." Agreed, OP, you weren't the a-hole for yelling at your brother. The way he voiced his concerns was not appropriate. He should have done it with you in private, and then you could have explained what was going on, or he could have talked to your boyfriend in a friendly manner to address the subject as well. Anyways, let's take a look at the update to see what happened and how this played out. So, a lot has happened over the past month. And let me tell you, I wasn't expecting what had happened afterwards, so I'll recap what followed. Turns out, my brother saw my Reddit post and called me asking me to speak to him. At first, I didn't want to, but he was still my older brother and I agreed to at least hear him out. When I arrived at his apartment and saw him, he looked like an emotional wreck. He profusely apologized for the way he acted and said he read some of the comments over and over and slowly came to realize he said it the wrong way. He only wanted what he thought was best and begged me not to go no contact before hugging me. He said he'd never meant to put me in a tricky situation and swore he never knew my boyfriend was depressed until he saw the original post. To me, it felt like the older brother I've known since I was a little girl had come back. In a rush, we embraced more and reconciled. Yes, my family is a tight-knit bunch. Mom, Dad, and my other two brothers were pleased we managed to patch things up, which was a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. As for my boyfriend, he's been showing some improvement and promised to pick up the slack some more regarding household chores so I wouldn't be stuck dealing with it. My son still doesn't like to talk about that day, but I'm sure he'll grow past it with help. We're looking for any available counseling sessions in our area to get our lives back on track before moving on to the next step. One step at a time. On Saturday the 17th of October, that was the day my world changed. My boyfriend called me over to the nearest beach by sunset and surprised me with the most beautiful ring I've ever seen. He got down on one knee and the bloody fool literally proposed to me. I was not expecting that, but the setting was so perfect and I do love him dearly, so I said yes. We made it official in a Zoom call the following week and my family was over the moon, sending us congratulatory messages and wondering if and when the wedding preparations would begin. I invited all my brothers to help, to which they'd be more than happy to help with. All in all, I'd say we ended things on a good note. Me and my brother have reconciled and my boyfriend is now my fiancé. Thank you guys for your feedback and for helping us grow closer than we were before. Edit. We agreed to do a long-term engagement. OP, let me start by congratulating you on the engagement. That's great news for you guys. And regarding your situation, I think it's fantastic and very lucky that your brother saw your post, identified the whole situation, and actually realized what he did was wrong. I mean, I know he didn't know anything about your boyfriend being depressed, but regardless, he owned up to what he did and apologized to you, and now you're reconciled, which is fantastic. So now that you've got your long-term engagement, you get to plan out your wedding. I hope you guys have fun doing that and all the best for the future. This one's from user Content Single Mom. Am I the a-hole for refusing to have my son's bio father in my son's life? I'm 40 female, my son is 5, his bio father M is 41. Background. I never wanted the typical socially approved life of dating. Marriage, cohabiting, family, which is the preferred model in my country. I wouldn't mind children, but considered both IVF and adoption instead of going through the motions of a romantic relationship just to have them. I would also have been okay with co-parenting. 6 years ago, I had a fling with M. He works for the same company but a different department. He also comes from the same small town as me, which is how we actually got involved. I was on birth control, he was using condoms, but we became that small percentage statistic anyway. I found out early because of my yearly gyno exam. As I said, I wasn't opposed to the idea of kids, so I decided to keep it. In part because of my age. My country has a decent maternity leave system. My job pays well and allows me to work from home, and my parents wanted grandkids, so they were not just willing, but eager to help me. I was in a really good position to be a single parent, if it came to that. I still told M out of courtesy and made it clear that I wasn't expecting anything financially or emotionally if he didn't want to be involved. If he wanted to be, we would be co-parents, nothing more. He declined, didn't want to be a father at all. Okay, his choice, but I made it clear that no obligations also means no rights. He agreed and signed his paternal rights away a few months later. I wanted to be fair and give him a chance to think it over in case his first reaction wasn't what he really wanted. I moved back home with my parents, weathered the minor scandal, small towns love their gossip, gave birth, took care of my son. "You don't have a dad because some kids only have a mom" has been enough of an explanation for him so far, and my dad and brothers serve as the male role models, so he doesn't feel the lack of that kind of figure in his life either. Conflict. As I mentioned, M comes from the same town. Our company sent everyone to work from home in March, and he moved back in with his parents. He contacted me recently about wanting to meet my son and possibly acknowledging him as his own. I told him no. He hasn't been around before. Why would he want to start now? He tried to tell me that seeing the kid around town woke up his paternal instincts, but I happen to know that his parents have been after him to settle down. Small towns really love their gossip. So I'm skeptical of that claim and find it more likely he sees my son as a way to appease his parents with a ready-made grandchild. I refuse to have my son used like that. As far as I'm concerned, neither of us need M in our lives, and he seems to only want to be around for selfish reasons, not because he really wants to connect with us. One parent who wants the kid 100% is better than two parents where one of them only sees the kid as a means to an end. Am I the a-hole for refusing to have my son's bio father in my son's life? The judgment is not the a-hole. Now let's take a look at the top comments. Arnin85 says, "Not the a-hole. He signed away his parental rights. He doesn't get to reinstate them on a whim to appease his parents." Sound like but actually says, "Not the a-hole. You don't get to waltz into a child's life after signing your rights away years earlier to possibly acknowledge him as your own. What the F even is that wishy-washy BS? It might be different if he was deadly serious about taking on a co-parenting role and becoming an active father in the kid's life. Maybe then there would be a reason to allow him in, but you still would not be obligated to and would not be the a-hole for refusing this. The flaky crap he's pulling now is nowhere near satisfactory. It would be far more detrimental to you and your son for him to come into your lives now and then back out again when he realizes that kids are hard and not something to just shut your parents up with. Not the a-hole at all. Wishing you the best of luck." Imaginary Marsupial says, "Not the a-hole, but I think you're better off taking control of the situation, especially if you live in a small town and he might find an opportunity to introduce himself outside of your control." OP responds, "I told my parents and brothers everything back when I was pregnant, so they know the situation and not to let M approach in public. There is also the global situation going on right now, and while our country is rather good at managing it, some restrictions still apply, so it cuts down on such opportunities." OP, I think this is pretty straightforward. He signed away his rights. You are not the a-hole. Period. If you're right about his intentions for wanting to be back and, having a relationship with your son, then you should definitely avoid that, because that's not a good influence on your son, which is the person we are worried about in this case. However, I would consider maybe in the future when the kid starts asking more questions about his father to include M only if M is capable of having a mature relationship with his biological son. In any case, that is your decision to make while you are in charge of your son. Now, when your son becomes an adult, he can do whatever he wants, of course. And if by then he wants to pursue a relationship with his bio dad, well then that's his choice. But of course, all of that is just my opinion. So now let's move on with the update to see what happened next. I was recently reminded about my post. I created this account with a less often used email address. And there have been some developments. I'm posting this mainly for closure for myself, but also in case some people were curious about how things developed. M had a car accident in late October and passed away. I was upset by this for various reasons, mainly related to my son. I mentioned in my responses to the original post that I was willing to facilitate their relationship if I saw proof M genuinely wanted to be a present father, and it felt unfair to have that chance torn away like that, regardless of what I thought about its likelihood. In early December, I was contacted by M's parents. It turns out M told them about my son after all. When I asked why they didn't come forward earlier, as in before M's death, they said they felt like the situation was of M's doing and he should have been the one solving it. Plus, they knew me in passing, and even more from my aunt's stories, so they hoped we would be able to reach a compromise, either me with M or eventually me with them. I took my son to meet them on St. Stephen's Day, Boxing Day. They got him some gifts, consulted by me, and we broke the fact that they were his other grandparents. We spoke of his father in terms of him having had a very busy work and then having an accident and going to heaven before he could meet him. He was upset, but it seemed to be more of a sadness at the loss of an idea than the concrete person. I'm currently looking up child psychologists to help deal with the whole thing. He seemed to get along well with his new grandparents, if a bit shy. The world situation being what it is complicates matters, but I'm more than able and willing to take all necessary precautions, up to regularly paying for the PCR tests for both families, to move things along. My son will never know his bio father personally, but he will have his grandparents who certainly want to know and love him. And for him to be loved and never doubt it is everything I could ever want. Well, OP, that one I didn't see coming at all. I am very sorry that M died and that your son didn't get the chance to at least meet him at some point in his life. But the good thing that came out of this is that he met his other grandparents who, like you say, they want to know and love him, which is fantastic. That's what a kid deserves. And I'm sure that if your son is curious about his bio dad in any way, then the grandparents can certainly help create an image for him to have. But like you say, the kid is being loved and that's all you could ever want. And with that being said, OP, I wish you both the best for 2021. This one's from user Princess Y Throwaway. Am I the a-hole for hiring a nanny to babysit my siblings instead of babysitting them myself without telling my mom? I, female 16, am in charge of babysitting my siblings. Female 2, male 3. Some days while mom goes out. This past Friday they stayed with me as usual and everything was going okay until I started feeling unwell out of nowhere. I waited for some time, but I was definitely not feeling better and there was no way I could take good care of my siblings. It was really bad. I tried to call my mom a few times, but she didn't answer and I didn't know what to do. I ended up calling their nanny. She used to stay with my siblings every day they were here last year and has stayed with them lots this year too. She has been following the rules of the bug perfectly and I paid her with my own money. Mom came home a few hours later and when she found out I wasn't the one babysitting them, she was raging. I was lying in my bed and she came to my room screaming about how irresponsible and lazy I had been. I tried to explain to her that I wasn't okay, but she said that she didn't care. I am now punished and she is super mad at me and I really don't know if I was wrong. Like, I get that it was my responsibility, but also I really couldn't do it. Am I the a-hole? The judgment is not the a-hole. Now let's take a look at the top comments. BNHA is one punch 100 says, not the a-hole. What kind of mother puts her 16-year-old child in charge of 2 toddlers and doesn't check her phone enough to realize she missed several calls until after she returned home? That's just irresponsible. OP responds, she didn't saw my text telling her about the nanny either. Affectionate Youth 21 says, you definitely are not the a-hole. You tried to ring your mom and she didn't answer. You put the safety of your siblings first when you weren't feeling great. You got in someone they knew and are familiar with and you paid with your own money. Your mom is the a-hole, especially for not caring how you were after you tried to tell her you were ill. OP responds, nah, she's always like that, but I guess I kinda see her point. But I swear I just couldn't do it and I did what I thought was best. Burnt Cucumber XYZ says, not the a-hole. Why exactly was your mom upset? You did the best you could. You tried to contact her. Then you hired a trusted nanny with your own money. You seem really responsible. OP responds, she is upset since that day it was my responsibility to babysit them. Quick OP update. Hi, I'm alive. Someone from here convinced me to call someone last night and I ended up having an emergency appendix surgery at like 3 AM. I'm still really tired, but I got lots of replies here and I'll try to reply to everything later. I'm truly sorry to have bothered everyone. Okay OP, few things. First of all, not the a-hole. Second of all, you didn't bother anyone. That's what this subreddit is for, to ask whether you're an a-hole or not, and you clearly are not. Your mom is, in my opinion. First thing I would ask is, who's the parent? You or your mom? She's the parent, she should be responsible for the kids. She should also be responsible for you. Now, I don't know and I don't care what she was doing out on Friday, but she should have been mindful of her phone in case of an emergency, like the one you were having. Then getting mad at you for fixing the problem properly and then punishing you? Your mom is a major a-hole in this situation. But of course, that's just my opinion. The good thing is that you caught your appendicitis in time for it to be removed, because if it had burst and it turns into peritonitis, that's dangerous. In any case, let's continue with the update to see what happened next. First of all, thank you to everyone that reached out and was nice with me. My appendix ruptured, but I'm doing okay, I guess. Recovery is super painful though. I followed the advice of some of you and told my sibling's dad what was going on and he will have a talk with mom. I didn't call CPS though, I can't do that. I also followed everyone's advice and I'm currently staying at a safe place with my girlfriend and her family until I get better. Mom has not visited. We talked on the phone and I only got more punished, but well, at least I got to solve everything else, I guess. Well, OP, hopefully your sibling's father can do something about at least them so you don't have to babysit them all the time. But I have to say, it sounds like your mom's got issues. She was not worried at all about what you went through, which is pretty serious. And to punish you on top of that? I wouldn't consider that normal. Or maybe I'm just wrong. But in any case, it's a good thing that you're not with her right now and you're staying at a safe place. Hopefully everything will turn out okay, OP. All the best. And that's it for this video. If you'd like, here are other videos from my channel that you would enjoy. Now, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.